Good morning. It's Wednesday morning. It's 9 o'clock, and I'm here with Norma Talks. My voice might be a bit croaky this morning. I had an unfunny sleep last night. So today, my voice doesn't want to call into line, but that's life. That's how it works. And we're going to be examining today, or beginning to examine, because it'll be a series. And I'm going to cough, so just excuse me here. As we try and get this voice box back to where it needs to be. It's not that I haven't been trying for the last while, believe me. We're going to look at the tarot number ones. Now, I did this, I think, a couple of weeks or maybe even last week. No, I missed last week, and I apologize for that. If you haven't heard already through the other programs, is that my computer ended up in the shop longer than I thought it would be. So I wasn't happy with what I did when I was talking about tarot number ones. I just was not happy with it. I wasn't sure. So as always, when I'm unsure, I kind of meditate on it and think about it, or even lay cards out on it sometimes. And what what came through was I didn't add all the ones. I just added the first basic ones. This voice is going to drive me insane if it doesn't stop very shortly. So I'll have another drink, okay? Here's to you. See, very often when you're looking at somebody on the YouTubes, you forget that they're a real person because they always look so nice, or they're there and the information is there. But the reality is they're dealing with this all sorts of things at the same time. And we get to come on and speak and the best we can and the best voice that we have. And all the other things have to be put aside, whatever those things may be. So let me just give you a background a little bit on the tarot. Is 78 picture cards. 22 of them are what we call higher arcana cards, which is your spiritual journey. The other 56 break down into 4 suits. Each suit goes from number 1 to 10, which is another 1. And that's what we're going to start exploring today. Now, through the years of my study, what I found is that basically the first one we will look at is the ones, because the thinking is the basis of everything. How we think. Now, I have to make a preface here because someone made a comment, which I haven't addressed yet because it's been a little bit of a tough week for some certain things for me, is that you need to recognize that you have deeper programming in the subconscious. And that's another part of the personal work I do for people, is to go there and start clearing out the subconscious. But talking regularly about what you're wanting to create and what you're wanting to do, the first thing is you have a thought. Now, it says here, if you look closely at this, there is a castle of dreams in the background. So the thought is reachable, is doable, but it's a journey. There's a river before you that you have to cross in order to go to that castle of dreams, and that is our goal. So some people really even don't create goals. I found them very helpful, and New Year's Day is usually my time when I sit down and think about what do I want to achieve in this coming year. Write it out, and then look back at what I had for the last year, if I stayed true to my desires and wants, and you could say needs. So we have a thought. Now, what we do with that thought, that comes later, but we have a thought, and the thought can be reached if it's what the symbol shows here. But there is 9 more numbers to go before we hit a 10. Number 10 is 10, right? But it's a number 1. And that's what a lot of people don't realize. If you happen to watch my mental mind treatments on Monday nights, I ask for three numbers between 1 and 22, which are the high arcanic numbers. And then I'm able to interpret what's sort of really happening or what's really going on before we do the prayer. And kind of everything gets a little bit intermingled at times, but that's part of the course. Now, so we've gone from this very clear thought. There it is, bang. We've gone through different numbers. We've gone through 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And now we come to 10. Now look what's happened to the one symbol, one wand, one thought has now become 10. Do you know how what we do in our minds? We multiply things. We think, we worry. Now, in both these symbols, the bottom of the wand does not touch the earth, which means it's not grounded. It's not set yet. In the numbers, as we go through them, you will see they will become set. Here, this man is really bent over like this, holding all his ideas together. He cannot see how close he is to basically, well, it's a house in this one, but the Castle of Dreams, what he started out with, he can't see it. He could walk right by it. He wouldn't know it. He wouldn't know what it looked like because he's got so many thoughts going through his head. See, what's really important with your ideas is that you make it your goal, but you keep steadfast. You don't keep adding on and worry. This number 10 is really a worry card where you worry so you can't even see what's going on because so much is happening in your thought patterning. So we've gone from clarity, and just to show you again, clarity of thinking to muddled thinking where you can't see. Plus it's burdening. Look how he's walking now. He can't hardly even stand up straight. So that is like kind of the beginning and the end of the thinking process. And as you will find out as we move through the different numbers, different things take place at different times with the thinking component. Now, the way I explain this a lot is that you have the thought, but now you've got to have the energy to put behind it. How do you make that thought come into reality? And that comes through into the cup symbology. The cup symbology is the second one that we really look at. Actually, this is my favorite symbol. I love this symbol. And it's the energy we put behind. Now, I'm just going to take a little deviation here. Often when I'm doing a reading and I'm resorting the symbols in a line so I can look at it a different way, I say, first, you have a thought, which is the framework of your house. If you're building a house, this is your framework, the thought. Then the value, the emotion, puts the walls up. It's what rounds it in. And what we have here, this particular symbol has a lot of symbology. It has the water with water lilies on it. It has the dove of peace putting in the sacrament into the cup, and the cup overflows. And if you ever have a deck, you can count all the droplets of water because they're important. And you have this sign here on the cup, which says Yodi Vohi, which is Jewish. It shows up in two other symbols, that symbol. I just can't quite remember the other one. Or maybe I've got the hand signal from number 5 because it's in number 10 and number 6 of cups and the 10 of swords. So it might be that. But anyway, this shows up on the top of number 5, the Hierophant's crown. The dove of peace puts the sacrament. There is an energy that you can utilize. People call it different names: God, Jesus, Allah, Buddha, Earth, Mother, whatever it is they're referring to the same thing. I call it the love source because when I first ran into it, that's what impacted me, was how loving it was. So I just call it the love source. So it's like we add this energy We are fed, and the energy moves out into the waters of life because the water is emotion. Cups are emotional. So wands, thinking, cups, feeling. And so the Ace of Cups here says you're aspiring to be at one with all that there is. And that's what we do. We want things to be peaceful. We want it calm. We want it to work. We want to feel all those wonderful things. So that's one. We're going to go through the numbers to number 10. And here we are celebrating success. The beautiful rainbow, put this a little closer. Beautiful rainbow with 10 cups. The man and the woman and the two children, everybody's celebrating and giving thanks. Now, there are a few little things in here I want to draw your attention to. The river of life. In water, it appeared the river of life. I probably didn't mention that in the Ace of Wands. When we have a thought, we cross over the river of life to the castle of dreams. In the Ace of Cups, there's a lot of water. It's emotional. Water and emotions go together. And so here we have the river here, very calm. Here's the house now that what they were going for. So in other words, this is where you get your desires. This is happy. This is, when that happens, we feel really good. But of course, nothing ever stops there because we go back to the beginning. But that's another story. But it's great when the symbology comes through that everything is really there. But usually life is like a bit of a struggle. And that's what we end up dealing with is the struggle part of it. And the struggle part of it comes through the swords. And the number 1 of the swords, hang on, I got to get this right here. The sword comes out of, all aces come out of clouds because they come from wherever. And from the crown here, you've got a laurel and a palm. That's right, laurel and palm. But if you look at the water, look at how rough the water is. This is a problem. Also on either side of the handle, well, it's just above the handle, there are 3 what we call yards of light on each side, which comes to a number 6, which we're not really dealing with the number 6 today, but on the higher value of the 6, that becomes important. And so this is rough times. This is a problem. If you ever meet anybody who says they've never had a problem, they've never had an issue they've had to deal with, take a look. Just take a look at them because this is an emotional planet. And in an emotional planet, what we will have is issues because of its emotion. I'm just going to say aside, in my journeys on the planets and looking at the cosmos a bit through other people's journeys, I haven't run into I've had one planet be slightly like ours. This is a feeling, emotional planet. When people come here, they don't know what on earth hit them because they're not used to dealing with feelings. Feelings is your body's way of talking to you. When you have a feeling, it's telling you something. I found if I name it, no matter what it is, without judgment, just name it. I'm feeling icky. I feel sad. I feel happy. I feel whatever. If I name it, the body quietens because it's got the message. As far as I'm concerned, this planet is alive. And because I've spoken to the Earth Mother many times, I go down into the earth and talk to her. It's like talking to a guide that's up there. So it's like there is a real issue for the majority of people when they first come to this planet. And that's why we get stuck here, because we don't learn how to deal with feelings. We don't recognize how emotion works. So it's like, it's a problem. You've got a problem. When this card comes up, there's a problem. Now, if you deal between 1 and 10 with the problems, because it does tell you how, that's the miracle of these decks, you come to 10. Man lays prostrate on the sand. The river of life is beyond him. Now, there's 2 things that are very important here. First of all, 9 of the swords are stuck in this man's back and one by his head, because if you look at the 9 of swords, that makes sense. But that figuration of his hand shows up in our number 5 of the Hierophant, which is the teacher of spiritual matters. So it's like you're learning something here. And there's a lot of esoteric implications you can apply to this symbol. But basically, if you're just reading for around life, it's the end of a problem. And it doesn't mean necessarily death. It just means it's an end of the problem. But what happens after that can be really like, oh, wow, where do we go from here? Because if you haven't learned what it is that they're going, and oh, yeah, I didn't mention the black here is receding as the light gets stronger. So there's light at the end. Now, if you know anything about if you've ever studied the death process or anything like that, which I have, that does have a lot of significance in that. Is that not your dad? But your soul goes on, and your soul goes into the light. That's what we trust it does. And there's a lot of help in getting there, that's for sure. So we have the thought, we have the feelings, then we have the problems that comes with it. So wands, thought, cups, feeling, swords, problems. Now we live in a material world. So the symbology that relates to the material world is the pentacles. And here, like all aces, coming out of the sky is a beautiful coin in the air. On the ground, there is a rose, what would you call that? Briar there, and lilies. So it's red roses of desire and lilies of pure thought. And we will see that when we get to number 1 of the Higher Arcana very strongly. So this is like working then as a pathway here to the mountains beyond. Mountains, problems. You got to climb over them. But it's like a new beginning. Remember, in the 10 here, you've reached the end. But now, in the Pentacles, you're reaching the new beginning. There are no endings. There's only beginnings. And that's what a lot of us forget. When things get really tough and hard, we think this is it forever. But it's really about, what are we prepared to let go of? Are we willing to change our thinking? Are we willing to become more aware of what our true feelings are? All of these things go, because here is a new beginning in a material world, not just the thought, not just the feeling, not just the issue, but something that is materially. So a new job, a new person, a new awareness that flicks there. So that's like all aces are about the beginning. But the 10, which is also a 1, right? 1 and 0. You've got 10 pentacles in the front of the card. You've got an older man sitting here with magical robes. He's got his hand on one of the 2 dogs that is in this symbol. Just behind, sort of, as a family, as a man and a woman with a little boy who also has his hand on the other dog. And the old man appears to be outside sort of the castle. The others are in. And the old man that's outside, he's got magical, it's like he's learned through life. That's what happens. Just we get older, we've learned a lot. But you know what? Not everyone wants to listen to what an older person has to say. I'm glad some of you do listen. I appreciate that. So here they are. They've reached if I just want to say, like, put it this way. In the beginning here, we had a thought, and in the background was the Castle of Dreams. That's what we're going for. Here we are in the Castle of Dreams. Everything is here. We have attained the material that this projects. And it's always nice to see that 10 of Pentacles, no matter what question is being asked or what element they're looking at, because now that that section is completed. But as long as you have a physical body, remember, you get a small time where everything is wonderful, and then it all begins again, because this is about growth. This is about you becoming aware and moving and understanding and coming into a place of awareness. And that is part of the philosophical part that we get to see in the higher arcana. Now, there's 3 numbers that relate to the number 1 in the higher arcana. The first one is the magician. For a lot of people, the magician is their favorite symbol. And I have my favorites, it's not really like I say, oh, this is my favorite. The Ace of Cups definitely is. But it's like, let's look at what the symbolism is. At the bottom, I'm just going to just check it. At the bottom, I know them, but it's like, I better check, make sure I'm accurate. At the bottom here are the roses and lilies. And remember, roses and lilies are aspiration. On his table, he's a magician, he's got all 4 suits. So he's got life to work with. He's dressed in what, well, they've been colored. They weren't colored originally, and so that's why we get the writer came along and colored them. The white purity, red energy for the cape. Around his waist, and I'm going to pull this really close, there is like a snake with its tail in its mouth. Now, snake is like knowledge, awareness. If it has its tail in its mouth, it is kept under control. So you can use what you've got. If it is not, and there's some symbols that is not under control, it means you're not strong, you're not in control of the situation. So now, above his head is this affinity sign. And he's pointing with a wand in his hand high, like up above. And to the red roses of desire. What's above can be brought to below. This is your aspiration. This is your inspiration. This is where you aspire above for help, for clarity, for wisdom, whatever. Sometimes because all 4 things are on here, you want some manifestation of whatever. The magician, number 1, the beginning. So of a higher order of these 4 that we have already looked at, you become the magician. You begin to aspire to what you want. You create. Personally, I have created in my life certain things. A lot of it, I get lazy like everybody else. And then when the issues come up, I go, oh, I better get busy. But you can create. You have energy in this earth that we live on where we can create. And a lot of it comes from utilizing basic things from the aces in the 4 symbols. 4 suits, I should say, not the symbols. Okay, so number 1, my key is all things are possible. You've got the tool, but you must aspire. The red roses above is aspiring. You can have the inspiration, which is below the roses and lilies together, but you must aspire. So nothing is going to come to you if you don't, in a way, do anything. A lot of people sit down and say, I want this, and they expect it to fly through the door. But you got to do something because the action creates, and that's what we're going to talk about next, is the action, is because it creates the vortex or the change or the space, maybe the better word, for it to come in. And as it comes in, then things begin to work a little bit better. Now, this is 10. So 1, 0 is a 1. The Wheel of Fortune. 4 fixed signs on the outside with books. This becomes important when you get higher right towards at the end. You got 4 fixed signs. 4 fixed signs, but no books, because the learning is it. This is number 10. So when you consider there are 21 higher arcana cards, hope I don't mess this up off my head, that the middle part here, number 10, is a new beginning. We've got a wheel, the Wheel of Fortune. We've got 4 fixed signs with books. So there's still something more to learn here, still something more to understand. We have three symbols around the wheel. On one, I got my finger on the wrong side. This side, our friend the snake. But he doesn't have his tail in his mouth, so he's unbound. He's out there. The Sphinx with the sword to protect, defend, and then the little, I think it's Sphinx that coming from the underground. In other words, energy being used that is not supposed to be used this way. There's a lot in here because it means change. Excuse me. It means change. And when I'm reading this card for anybody, I'm looking to see how fast that thing's turning around. I know it sounds funny. It's flat on a card, but how fast is it going? Because that means if they have some control to change it, or yeah, you're on a ride and you have to wait or apply brakes in a way. You have to apply the brakes. You have to become aware of the bits and the pieces that are going on. Usually in the beginning of any kind of transition, you will hit a rough spot, and that is the Wheel of Fortune. It's rough. It is not clear. It's like that's where you kind of get confused. You think it's never going to happen. It's not going to come. What am I supposed to be doing? And the whole key to this symbol is to be, actually, I should show you again because it's interesting. See the wheel? I'm going to pull it really close here. You need to become like the hub of the wheel. So you're not on the wheel. When you're on the wheel, you're being spun in all sorts of directions. When you're in the center of the wheel, then you can dictate. You can apply the knowledge, the awareness, because every one of these four corners representing the four elements have books. This is a major learning time. Now, sometimes, of course, we're stubborn and we don't want to learn anything because we think we know it all. But mostly if it's on the journey of life, we better listen. We better figure it out. We better get the answers that we're really needing. And then, remember, there's symbols in between. We come to number 19 of 21. Oh, sorry, of 22. Of 22. I am with it, you know. Now, this is again one of my favorite I like to see, especially in readings when they've been going through a tough time. 19 is 1. 1 and 9 equals 1. So, because it's a 19. White horse. Now, when we get to the death symbol, which is number 13, it has a horse that's not white. It's a white horse with a child with a lovely sunflowers in her hair and a red feather, and carrying a red flag. Behind is sort of a brick fence, so they're out of the fence. They're out being bound. 4 sunflowers are showing, 1 on one side, 3 on the other. Now, if you go back, 1 is all things are possible. 3 is the Empress, which is the love symbol. And behind it is a radiant sun. It's like you've traveled this journey and you're coming out now, innocent like a child, as you begin again. You can equate this energy field pretty well anywhere and everywhere that it goes. Whether it's the death process, same thing applies. Whether it's a situation in your life, it could be applied. Whether it's the 10th time you've gone through something like this and you have to look at your addiction to it, because a lot of people they're addicted to problems and challenges, and they just don't want to look at how that can be different. I'm not going to say that it's an easy job to begin to look inside how you think. I found that when anything isn't going quite the way I wanted in my life, I have to look at how I'm thinking or what I'm thinking or what emotion is governing everything, which will affect the thinking. They're all intertwined. How do you deal with the issues and problems? Sometimes I don't want to deal with them anymore. I just want them to go away. Well, that's not the way it works. You've got to look at things squarely and decide, because if you want to become like the sun and move beyond, excuse me, and move beyond into the direction of where you're heading and where you're going. I was debating as to whether to go over the number twos today, but I am choosing not to. Late minute decision. And what I'll probably do, because next Wednesday is what we usually do a reading and look at. And what I'll do is the number twos next Wednesday, and maybe number threes as well. We'll see. But I think I want you to really think of number 1 is the beginning. Number 10 is kind of the middle. And number 19, which is the other 1 number, is freedom, is movement. It means the transformation. You see, how many transformations do we go through in a lifetime? You know, when things get tough, sometimes we forget that we're learning, we're growing, we're becoming, you know how you tumble stones and the stones and they come out, they're all smooth and shiny and pretty. That's what happens to us in life. You're not going to have depth within yourself if you don't have issues. And I think the tarot really points to that. But you've got a brain. And your brain is where your ideas are. And if you want to concentrate and worry and really make it difficult for yourself, you're going to be that 10 of wands, not being able to see in front of your face at all. The value, the energy you put behind anything, I'm going to say clean? Like, is it desire of what you want? Are you applying that power that is above in there? Like, what's your spirituality? What do you really believe in? Do you think we're just down here for any reason at all? Or do you think there's a bigger reason why we are alive and why? And like me, who's been in reincarnation forever, it seems, in this life in the beginning, when I found reincarnation, it answered so many questions I had. And it's like applying the value, applying the philosophy of, and you know, in some ways I have heard this said and I shake my head, but oh, well, if I screw up, I get to do it again. Sometimes when you do it that way, because you don't want to take responsibility in the now, as we'll see when we get to sixes, very important about responsibility, is that all you're doing is putting it off and making it harder. It gets harder. If you have an opening and an awareness of how the spiritual energy, shall we call it? Excuse me, I'm going to have a little sip of water here. If you're going to not look at your philosophy, it's not like I say you have to have this philosophy or that philosophy. You're going to have a philosophy that works. And the only way you're going to know as it works is you apply it to the life. If it works, great. I've met a lot of people who have a philosophy and it's like, that's it. And then they wonder why things don't work. It's because they've never got out like, this is it. I don't know that anything is it, because it all depends on how you apply it. It all depends on how you work it. For some people, this may be it. Another person, that may be it. But it's like having flexibility. It's being able to see beyond what your nose. It's being able to understand what life is actually teaching us. And believe me, am I perfect? No, not at all. I get stubborn, I get set, I get angry, I get frustrated, I get all the things that we do as people. But I've learned over the years to also remember the higher power that's there and ask what I specifically want. And when I get really down to it, that's what's being created for me in my life. Miracles have happened, and I've talked about those. Maybe I haven't told you what they were, but miracles. Like, there's no reason why a certain person should be at a certain place, and I walk by and they recognize me, talk to me, and give me an answer. an answer that I really didn't know I was asking, but it opened up my life back up again. The miracle of life, and it brings tears to my eyes actually, is trust the process. There is a power. It is there for you if you allow it in. Doesn't matter what name you call it. They don't care. But there are helpers. Most of us, when we are born, are given a helper. Do we use it? Do we look at it? Mine worked with me for many, many years, running meditation circles, psychic development circles. And then I developed to the point where we got a new one, a higher evolved one, we'll say, until that grew into another one. But that's the evolution of life. And it's like knowing, and when I look at these symbols on this table in front of me, I tear up, because life is a process. It's not about hiding. It's not about demanding. It's about recognizing there is a force that works with you. You would listen. Life consistently gives you the answer. I'm not a big Bible puncher, because I've read some of the story, but there's a story in the Bible, and it's a story about a man who wants something, and I think the angel comes to him at some point and points out all the times they had given him what he wanted, and because it didn't look exactly how he thought it should look, he had rejected it. Now, those of you that have studied the Bible, you might remember that story. Make sure that you're not like that. Like, it's got to be this way. Like, my desk over here is a mess. Okay. But if you're a person that says everything has to be absolutely in order and everything has to be fine, my voice has to be perfect every time I talk to you, well, that's not always going to happen. But if I wouldn't talk because my voice isn't perfect when I'm going to start or when I'm throughout, nothing would happen. Now, that story just popped into my head, and that means somebody needs to hear that. And if you're the person that needs to hear that today, don't get stuck in that it has to be a certain way, because then you are like the 10 of Swords. You get stuck. And what it means, you have to transition into something new and look at it differently. The one thing I do know, as we will see as we move through the tarot, movement, change, being aware. The moment you get set and stuck, life doesn't always work the way that it wants. Those of you that have been listening, and especially on Monday nights when we do the healing, I've had a real healing situation going on now for nearly 2 years. And I was like, what did I do to get this? It's not about what did I do to get it or have it, create it. It's about how are you handling it? How are you moving through this time period? Because there are many people out there that also are handling things. So when they talk to you, whether they're having a reading or they're having, many of the other things that I do, you can understand their frustration, their desire for it to be different. And the key always, when things are not working the way you want them, is don't get into what have I done wrong? Maybe you have. Maybe you've been guilty over something. Maybe you're carrying a load of guilt. Well, you give that over. We call that giving that over. Prayer works. I've discovered a method of prayer that works. Monday nights, we use it all the time. You give it over and get clarity, and life moves on. Well, that sort of changed a little bit, but anyway. I love number 1, number 10, number 19 in the Higher Arcana, because it shows you All things are possible because we're given all the tools that we require. We just need to aspire for what we want. We will go through change. We will go through many different things as we come to learn how to create until we achieve the goal, because we will. If we're pure in heart, if we don't want to, do somebody else in so that we get on top, so to speak, if we just do what we need to do, the energies of the universe are right there with you, and you will create and you will be, and it will be good. And thus ends that lesson for today. Just a couple of little things. If you want to find out what's going on, I've got my full, I believe it's up now. My full newsletter is up on my website, which is just my name.com. The specials for November and December are in there. And I thank Terry, my faithful friend and helper with the website. And so we will move forward. And next week, what my plan is now is we'll do the reading for November. I laugh a little bit because it seems like they haven't got any easier in the last few months. And we'll do number 2s and hopefully number 3s because there's less of them in a way. Okay? You have a good day. You have a good week. Do what you can do to make yourself happy. And just be you. You're unique and you're the only one. So you want to be able to fulfill everything that you want and choose. Wishing you well. Trying to think, there's nothing else really particularly. I think we just had a local provincial election here. I think as we move into November, the U.S. have a country. I can't remember what date our country one is too. Oh, lots of shambles. But anyway, enjoy. The weather's turning cold here, so I'm sure it's turning cold in lots of places. Blessings. Bye now.